Okay, settle down a bit. I have a bit of a flu, so I'm not going to have very loud yelling voice here. I also will give you only a brief talk and then set you off to do your work on the last case or project 2 or something else you really want to do. So let's go through today's topics briefly. So today the talk was going to be about software testing in practice, but unfortunately I don't think my voice will yet again be able to handle the 1 hour talk, so I'll just leave you to go through the last year's lecture on the same topic. There's not that much of a difference there, only difference being that the lecture video, which is already as a link on the NOFA pages, is talking about, for example, game development or things like that, but it includes all the essential parts of how software testing is done in practice. So you find them there, and there's also a summary of the topic in, for example, in the course video archive. So basically, what the idea was that, well, not to do this, but you see it was to show that, well, okay, in addition of the software process being something like this, the waterfall approach here is just used as a more or less as a simplified example. You have to define things before you can design things. You have to design things before implementation, and if you don't have strict implementation, you can do technical testing work. And if you haven't tested things, you shouldn't be launching anything. However, the idea between what is actually software testing is sometimes a bit vague. Or at least what is quality control, what is quality assurance, what is testing work, and so on and so on. So yes, the most common explanation of testing or definition is that it's the technical work of ensuring that everything works. Well, it's correct to some degree, but actually the software testing isn't only that. It's more or less every activity which tries to ensure that your software reaches the best possible quality with the resources available. So it starts also from the definition phase, and if you design something correctly, it has fewer problems. If you design something correctly, you don't have to do that much technical testing work. So part of the quality assurance and quality control and also testing work is to ensure, for example, that your user interface is going to fit on the touch screen of your tablet, for example. This is something you should test on the design phase. Because if you find out that the resolution of your tablet and platform is too low for your system to function after you have implemented it, you have wasted everyone's money and time, and also, well, driven yourself into a situation where you can only show that, well, this system cannot work, so you should be designing things differently. So more or less the idea is that testing is everything, and it defines what, where, who, why, when, and how in organizational level, in project level, in management, and in actually doing the technical testing work of running test cases, what happens there. So trying to find a way to make possible, make best product possible. So overall, this slide here, I think that the system is now recording wrong screen. I really freaking hate this new office system. It tries to make me do things which I really don't like. It messes up the recordings because it tries to enforce me to use that sort of a stupid control screen I don't need anyway. But anyway, the idea is that the testing work can be defined on several layers. There's the organizational layer, meaning that there's some general policy or strategy for doing testing work, and there's test management on the project level, and there's finally the fundamental level where the testing is done. And all the different things related to testing, tools, methods, personnel, test case design and selection, applied quality criteria, outsourcing activities, all these, the other things are defined on the strategy level and applied on the project level. So more or less the organization is able to manage all these things and keep the project afloat. Finally, one word about the testing work, because the case description this week requires you to do some consideration on what sort of test strategy to define. The testing process isn't something that exists in a vacuum. That, as software process itself, is actually a process of humans, including human interaction, human participation, and all the other things. So consider that the social, cognitive, informational, and mechanical aspects are all present there. So in addition of just making a law book on how to run your use cases, you should also take into account the fact that you are dealing with people. Your employees should be able to conduct the work themselves. It should be legal to do so. And for example, if you have to just exchange all your existing equipment, get rid of all your existing employees, and break a law to complete your new and great test strategy or approach on how to do this testing work, it probably isn't going to work. So there's also what sort of data you have, what sort of people you have, what sort of laws you have, and what sort of systems or hardware components you have. All these things have something to say on the test strategy. So finally, going into the actual case. So the idea this week is to define, well, now the idea is to first that you go through the earlier presentation on these testing in real life, and then the case is that you are tasked to create a real test and risk management plan. So there's the case description. We have a company which is clearly experiencing problems. We have an explanation of how they do work and what sort of problems do they have. If there's some details missing or some extra details you would like to know, you should just design around the problem or make your own conclusions on how it probably happens, because we have been talking about software engineering and how software development is done for several weeks now. So one thing to find here is the template. So of course the first impression of this template is that it's completely huge. I mean really, really huge. So do not try to fill out each part of this documentation. Look through the parts that are required by the case and then design based on your knowledge on how software processes happen and what sort of things to expect from test processes to give an answer on formulating a new test strategy for the case organization. It includes something like when to identify risks, how to develop activities, what sort of metrics to keep in mind. For example, measure how many requirements we are still to do, how much money do we have, and do we have timetables or scheduling and that sort of stuff. So basically, create a test strategy for a small, medium-sized development team. That's more or less the assignment. Now, the second part, the project 2, is also already online. The last part isn't really much of a difference. If we go to check what's there on the final part, more or less there, it only adds a couple of details. So draw a package diagram on your work. What sort of components you have defined, how different parts are related to each component. Also, and what sort of things for each component you have in your existing documentation. After this, there's a couple of checklist questions for you to check out that you have more or less all the small details in present. Do you have a view of participating classes diagram in each detailed use case? That's the boundary control entity thingy. Is there an interaction diagram for each detailed use case flow of events? Is there a short description for each class, operation, and attribute you have created, at least somewhere in the document, explained on one sentence or two what each component does, so I don't have to guess? Is there a stereotype for each analysis class in the BCE model? So when you have the BCE models, do all of those classes have some sort of a stereotype, or are they just hanging around there? And are all classes of the object in interaction diagrams in the view of participating class diagram? So do the interaction diagrams and the view of participating classes, or in more general form, are all the different diagrams and views into your design synchronized? Meaning that are they explaining the same system? Do they have differing details? Are they conflicted with each other? And if they are, get rid of those problems. Finally, if you are satisfied with your work, you have everything detailed here, present, and everything asked in this project 2 assignment present. You might want to proofread your work, see that all your diagrams are exported correctly to Word, and create one PDF file, which you are then you should then send me for a review. The description of how to name your work and how to submit your work are on the top of the project to list there. Submission. Next week I will be showing some examples of previous project 2 works from not this assignment but a couple years ago. So if you have problems understanding what I'm expecting, you might want to check next week's lectures. So I'm going to show a couple of better submitted works as an example to you, but you can already finalize your work because there will be no new requirements. And that more or less is that. I have already put the original slide set I was going to talk about this week on the course web pages. It's already on the lectures, and where is it? It's not there, it's here, and the last year's course lectures are also linked there. And finally, the final word before I let you to start doing your own work remember to give me feedback on this course. The link to the feedback form is already on the Notpa pages. There's a handful of answers on the survey, but send me a feedback on the entire course. Of course, I know that this sort of a gimmick lectures, when I'm not going to actually talk about anything else than just say that go watch video online somewhere, isn't really fun, but I think that I would probably lose my voice completely if I try to give you anything anything a bit longer. So, I guess that's about it. Go through the case description, see the template documentation, and if you have anything to ask, I'll hang around here for 15, maybe 20 minutes answering your questions. And there will be one more session next week where we'll be talking, where I will be helping you with the Project 2 assignment if there's any problem. If you have already submitted your Project 2 by next week, then I have nothing else to say than happy holidays and so on, and I'll see you in exam. Good.